Modern physician leaves the profession on average at the age of 48. There is a predicted doctor shortage in 2030 that is as high as 140,000 physicians. Women surgeons are leaving the profession at an alarming rate. This is not simply a problem that affects physicians. This is a problem that affects everyone. And until we all start giving a crap about the well-being of physicians, we all lose.
I'm quitting nursing in 2026 and I'm bringing you along with me. I've been a nurse since 2019 and I've just hit a point where I know that I can't do this forever. I'm still working right now as a nurse, but I'm starting esthetician school in January. I've never felt more aligned with anything and I'm choosing to just pivot my whole life. I want a life that feels softer, slower, more me. Like, I don't want to work in the hospital anymore. I don't want to be a bedside nurse anymore. It's just not for me.
So why are people, specifically doctors, leaving medicine? Well, being a doctor who's been in practice for the last at least 10 to 15 years, I would say that the medical industry in the world has changed dramatically, and not in a good way for doctors and healthcare providers. When I initially applied to medical school and decided to go into training to become a physician, I was under this impression that I was going to go through all this training, I was going to make all these sacrifices, and that at the end of it, I was going to add value to our society. I was going to be somebody who could take care of their community, who could make a real difference in the world. But in reality, it did not turn out to be like that at all. And I'm not saying I regret my decision of becoming a doctor, but I wish I knew a lot of this prior to going into training. Because once you commit to the medical world and being a physician, there's really no turning back, because it really starts off with the debt, the student loans. So most people, including myself, graduate from medical school with at least $300,000 to $500,000 in debt, student loans from just becoming a doctor and just from training to become a doctor. And so I don't think people realize how much in debt you go into as a physician in training. After the debt and getting through the debt and all of that that's associated with the training, you are also giving up the majority of your 20s and some of your 30s, depending on the specialty that you choose. So what does this mean? Undergrad, I did for 4 years. Medical school, I did for 4 years. And then you go into residency. My residency as an internal medicine physician was 3 years. So if you calculate that out from 18 until my early 30s, I was in training and really sacrificing a lot of my life. So most of my friends in this time period in their 20s and 30s are traveling, are starting their families, they're getting married, they're making great money in their jobs and in their careers, whereas us physicians are still in training, making probably less than minimum wage based on how many hours we're working in our residency program, and not able to start our lives until later in life, comparatively speaking to a lot of our peers and our friends.
I don't think any human being should be a nurse anymore. The way we get treated, it should never happen anymore. Patients are so fucking disrespectful. Every time you fucking see someone for the first time, a patient, it's a complaint, this, after this, after this. This drags your fucking soul down. It's toxic. It's toxic energy that's radiating. I just walked out of the hospital. I just walked out of the unit. I didn't tell anybody. I got floated, and they ran me down with way more patients than I'm supposed to take. And it's literally 12:52. I just walked off, and I'm just sitting in the car. When I walked out, I literally felt, honestly, I felt like I was being freed out of prison, like I was being free from an imprisonment. There's nothing else I can do. There's nothing else I can give this profession. In my 14 years of practice, I have done so much.
Healthcare in America is starting to crack. We have the technology, but we can't seem to stop burning through the people who are actually holding healthcare together. We already see the warning signs. Emergency departments boarding patients for literal days because there's no rooms available. Rural hospitals shutting down, nurses and other healthcare staff leaving bedside in massive numbers, primary care shortages growing every year, long wait times for specialists, increasing violence against healthcare workers managing more patients with less resources, insurance denials and delaying care, and patients delaying treatment because they just can't afford it. And are you ready for the scary part that's on the horizon? This is all happening before the largest wave of aging Americans hits the system. The U.S. population is getting older while healthcare workers themselves are aging out, retiring, or leaving altogether. So you do the math. More patients, sicker patients, fewer staff. And all the while, hospitals continue to operate like corporations. Metrics, productivity, throughput, cost-cutting, do more with less. Many nurses and other healthcare workers believe the system is not going to help protect their license, their mental health, their physical safety, and especially not their work-life balance.
As a nurse, one thing the public does not understand about healthcare is that bad working conditions for us means a bad experience for you. When healthcare workers strike or vote to authorize one, it is to improve conditions for workers and therefore patients, you. Fighting for better patient ratios means we get to spend more time with you. Fighting for better equipment means you get a TV and a bed that's working. Fighting for better pay means you don't have healthcare workers that are working multiple jobs and showing up to take care of you exhausted. All of it is for you. All of it helps you. This fall has seen some very historic wins for the working class. All thanks to unions. All thanks to our right to organize. But one that I am willing to bet you probably haven't heard about yet was Sutter Health in California. Sutter Health workers had a huge win after a very long battle with their company. This nonprofit hospital system raked in over $1 billion in 2024. Please explain to me how you have a profit margin of over $1 billion, but you still refuse to listen to your workers when they demand safer conditions for themselves and their patients.
50% of the nurses in the United States are 50 and older, meaning that within the next 12 years, 50% of the nurses will be retired. 50%. That's half of all of the nurses in the United States. They'll be gone. With this greedy healthcare system that encourages the abuse of nurses, I'm not sure they'll be able to recruit the 50% that they'll be losing in the next 12 years. That is catastrophic. There is going to be a massive wave of retirement. And of the other 50%, millennials make up 30 to 34%. That leaves Gen Z only making up 6 to 19% of nurses. I can't imagine what nursing is going to look like in 12 years. I just think that Gen X and millennials are a case study to see how much they can put on us. Then they're going to turn around and do that to Gen Z. They're going to see if it works. And if it works, then they're not going to need that many of them.
New supervisor, and I felt like she was just constantly picking at me. Recently, like it just started, everything was fine until recently. Mind you, she just been there a couple months, but you know, she's picked on me and I lied on my name, and I just felt like honestly she was out to get me. And to protect my medication license, I decided to just leave. So yeah, it's just a gentle reminder to never take no shit from anybody, no matter what, and always know your worth.
One time I got called into my manager's office because I was being reported by another nurse because I made her feel uncomfortable when she was eavesdropping on a private conversation that I was having with a friend/nurse. The conversation wasn't anything inappropriate. We were simply discussing pro or anti-union, but we were joking amongst ourselves, and she said the language I was using made her feel unsafe. And the manager decided to pull me away from my patients to tell me that if I continue said behavior, she would have to get HR involved. She did not ask me what actually happened. She didn't ask me for my version of events. None of those things. Just to let me know that if I continue with said reported behavior, she would email HR. I said, don't you worry about it. She said, what do you mean? I said, don't you worry about it. I will handle that. I exited her office, walked to the nurse's station, sat down at an available computer, opened up my company email, CC'd and BCC'd all my personal emails, emailed her and HR together, and let them know effective immediately I will be vacating this said position that you begged me to take.
Hundreds of doctors are about to disappear from U.S. hospitals, not because they quit, because the government hasn't processed their paperwork. So let me break this down because this is not getting enough attention. Right now, hundreds of foreign trained physicians who completed residency here in the United States are at risk of being forced to leave the country within months. Not because they did anything wrong, but because their visa waivers are stuck in a federal backlog. These are J1 visa waiver physicians, which means they agreed to stay in the United States and work in underserved communities for at least 3 years. So we're talking rural hospitals, low income urban areas, places that already struggle to recruit clinicians. Now, here's the problem. This program, run by the Department of Health and Human Services, used to process these applications in 1 to 3 weeks. Now there are hundreds of applications sitting there, unprocessed since last fall and winter. And if these applications are not reviewed and approved by July 30th, these doctors have to leave the country.
Can I just ask you a real question real quick? Why is it that every establishment that I go to is short-staffed? I'm literally on the phone talking to my other doctor's offices to make an appointment for myself. And the front desk lady says, "Hold on, babe, give me 1 second." I said, "Is everything okay?" She said, "No, girl, I've been by myself for about 2 days." Huh? 2 days? You been by yourself for 2 days? You mean ain't nobody show up to work for 2 days? You been in the front desk by yourself for 2 days?
I was just like thinking back and reflecting on how when I was a nurse and I was working in the hospital, how misaligned that was for me. And I was doing that for 5 years, and it was so draining. Like, it was so taxing on my being, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And looking back, you know, becoming an entrepreneur and building something from literally the ground up, from like literally nothing, has been hard. But to have stayed where I was in a misaligned position that was like sucking me dry, I just don't know the toll that it would have taken had I stayed longer. And I'm just like, I have so much gratitude for trusting the process and literally taking the leap, feeling the fear, and doing it anyway.
I don't think any human being should be a nurse anymore.
So, getting sick in America isn't just a health problem anymore. A lot of people, it's a financial problem. You can have insurance and still be scared of going to the hospital. You can pay your monthly premium, go to the doctor to get treated, and then weeks later receive a bill that makes you wonder if you accidentally like bought a property or something. And that's the part that I think people outside America sometimes don't understand. Like, having insurance does not necessarily mean everything is affordable. There are deductibles, there are co-pays, and also co-insurance payments. There are medications that aren't fully covered. There are procedures that require authorization, and sometimes people are left trying to figure out what exactly their health insurance will actually pay for. And KFF's latest polling found that nearly 2/3 of Americans are worried about being able to afford healthcare for themselves and their families. And 36% said they had skipped or delayed healthcare they needed because of the cost. Think about that for a second. Like, people are actually deciding whether they can afford to be sick. And then you have the healthcare workers themselves. Like, nurses are saying they are tired. And honestly, I don't think we talk enough about that, because when a nurse tells you they are exhausted, that's not just somebody complaining about having a difficult job. That's somebody who may be responsible for several patients at the same time, dealing with emergencies and angry families, working long shifts, documenting everything, and still being expected to show up the next day and do it all over again. And when healthcare workers start saying, I can't do this anymore, we should probably listen. Like, there are already reports of nurses leaving the profession because of burnout, poor working conditions, and lack of support. And one recent nursing commentary cited National Councils of State Boards of Nursing figures showing that roughly 100,000 nurses have left the field, with another 138,000 leaving afterwards, and about 40% considering to leave. And here's where things are getting like interesting, because you would think that if healthcare is becoming more expensive, the people actually providing that healthcare would at least feel like they are being properly supported. But that's not necessarily what we are seeing. Hospitals themselves are saying they are under enormous financial pressure, and the American Hospital Association reported that hospital expenses increased 7.5% in 2025, while spending on drugs increased 13.6%. It also says hospitals spent about 43 billion trying to collect payments from insurance for care that they had already provided. So now you have patients saying healthcare is too expensive. You have nurses saying we are exhausted, and you have hospitals saying our costs are exploding. And somewhere in the middle of that is the ordinary American who just wants to go to the doctor without feeling like they are gambling with their entire financial future. And that's why I think the bigger conversation shouldn't be why healthcare are so expensive. We should be asking, where is the money actually going? Because America spend huge amount on healthcare. Like KFF says the US spent about 14,775 something dollars per person on healthcare in 2024, compared with about $7,000 860 in other high income countries, that almost twice as much. So how can a country spend as much and still have so many people afraid of the bill? That's the part that doesn't sit right with people. And I'm not saying America doctors and nurses don't work hard. It's quite the opposite. There are incredible health workers in America who are saving lives every single day. That's exactly why system needs to work better for them. Because imagine being a nurse working and knowing that your patient needs more attention, but you're already overwhelmed. Imagine being a doctor who wants to spend time with a patient but has paperwork, insurance requirements, administration responsibility, pulling them in 10 different directions. Imagine being a patient who knows something is wrong but keeps thinking, I'll just wait and see if it gets better. Not because you're okay, but because you're scared of the bill. And that's when healthcare stops functioning the way people expect it to. Healthcare shouldn't be something that makes you afraid to admit, but it's crazy how life is becoming right now. And maybe that's why we're seeing this growth of frustration. People aren't necessarily asking for luxury healthcare, they are asking for something much simpler. They want to be able to see a doctor, they want their medication to be affordable, they want nurses to have enough staffs to support actual care for patients properly. They want hospital to focus on patients instead of growing in paperwork and insurance disputes. And they want to understand why a system that spends so much money still feels so difficult to access. Because at some point, People are going to stop asking whether the American healthcare system is expensive, because people already know. And the bigger question is whether Americans are actually getting the healthcare they're paying for. And right now, more and more people seem to be saying something has to change. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you in my next video.